Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Hey, John, are you ready to go on the air?
I think I'm ready to go on the air. We don't need a Fox News intro. We can just dive right in.
You noticed, okay. Little screw up, and it is 100% my fault. So we missed the Fox News. Actually, we got the beginning of the Fox News, but that was it. And I hit the wrong button, and the Fox News went away. So some people are upset. Some people are cheering. Yay, no Fox News. We know who those people are. By the way, John, you get me in trouble. I've got, over the weekend, it's interesting because people listen to the replays of the show both on bjshow.co and then bjshow.us, which is the YouTube version of the show. Man, did I get some pushback for two things that we talked about recently.
Can you tease us, or do you want to? I think we have time now that we skipped the traditional intro.
The fat.
What would surely no one is upset with the act of philanthropy that you did last week, single-handedly bringing attention to a women's event that the organizers weren't promoting at all, and you bringing attention to it. Surely people aren't upset about that.
John, that was one of them. I got
wow. Why would anybody? I'm guessing they were misogynistic men who didn't like the fact that our show single-handedly shone a light on this worthwhile event.
Well, we're trying to help promote it, trying to help Nina Needleman, or Nina.
We don't try, Brad. We actually do.
We actually do.
And did you hear the action that Nina took Friday afternoon after our show?
Explain that to me. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know, Brad. I seem to recall you sent me a link, didn't you? Isn't there a brand new page up? Who created that, and why did she do it?
No, I don't. Well, I sent you the link, but is that a brand new page? I mean, I wasn't that up before? No, it wasn't?
No, Brad.
Okay.
No, it wasn't at all. She did it in response to our show. But go ahead, Brad. What was the other thing people are mad about?
The fat mermaid thing. Remember we
talked
about...
you brought up the fat. Now, remind us. There was some oink face that said that. What was her story?
That's John Combest, who called the woman an oink face. She was a large woman of color who has started this thing called the Fat Mermaid Club, and she is a mermaid who says that the problem is that mermaids are all white and they're small, and she is trying to essentially show that mermaids can be of color and can be big. And so she started... And you think I'm kidding. And the article, actually, she's got a website up in the whole bit, and she's got videos of her swimming around with her mermaid tail and the whole bit. But I got some pushback. Apparently, you made some comments about her size, and some of the women listeners didn't necessarily appreciate that. But
so when you say some, let's be specific. You mean one?
I got three.
You did not get three independent comments.
I got three, one of them on Friday, two of them over the weekend. Because
nice, very good. You know, I know an old radio guy who's missing a gallbladder who once told me, there's three kind of impressions you make. John, have I told you a story before? No, Brad, tell it again.
Good, bad.
There's three kind of impressions you can make. Good, bad, and none. And the only one you don't want to make is the third one.
John, I love it when you go into your old-timey narration voice. That's like when
and then I got out my Tommy gun.
Yeah, right. It's like
Brad, we should touch on, and I think it's kind of you to point out how grateful Nina Needleman has been about the fact that we have helped her promote her event, and that we finally shone a light. As you know, Brad, Nina was doing no promotion, and as you may have heard, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch is working on a story now about Nina's event.
Now, were you behind that?
No. As a shoot in real life, not kayfabe, but as a shoot, no, I'm not. But you know, it's amazing, Brad. When we apply some gentle, friendly motivation to people, it's amazing how quickly they go on their own personalfinancewhisperer.net website and create a landing page because they hadn't done it yet. It's amazing how we're able to get people to move, Brad, and I'm proud of that. And you should be proud of allowing Nina to come on Thursday and get the ball rolling by reading her script, misidentifying speakers, taking credit for sessions that she's not leading, etc. And I think you should be proud of that, Brad.
John. Okay, first off, I am, because of my mother, and I've talked about this before, and John always makes fun of my mother, saying...
And let's look down, way down south to find Brad's mother. Yes, we're looking down at you, Miss Hildebrand.
That's how John typifies my mother as not being upstairs, but being downstairs, if you know what I'm saying, because she's been gone since 2012. But my mother was a strong, independent woman, way ahead of the women's movement, and she's instilled in me, to this day, that women can do, and I say this all the time, whatever a man can do, woman can do. Well, certain things.
That's not true. But go ahead. They can't do pull-ups like we can. They can't do a lot of things. But go ahead, Brad.
And just last week, after coming out of court with my daughter, the attorney, as we're walking to my car, and I said to her, you know, Amanda, I worked real hard to try to make you an independent woman. And she said to me, you have made me an independent woman. And she told me all the things she'd done. And she is, I will agree with her. For the most part, she's a very independent woman.
And you were making a point, Brad.
I love to see women succeed. But what bothers me is, and I told this to Nina when I talked to her on the phone to begin with, the Little Black Book and Nina's event. The Little Black Book, you can only be a woman to join. Angel Magasano, you can only be a woman. And in Nina's event, not only can you not be a speaker at the event, because I asked her if she needed a speaker, and she says, no, I can't do it because I'm a man. If you're a man, you can't go to the event. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this is like ridiculous. Women have been discriminated for a long time. Now they're not, but yet they're discriminated against men. What's wrong with this picture, John? Can I ask you what's wrong with this picture?
I think there's nothing wrong with it because Nina, as a Democrat, and of course you can just facts here, Brad, of the partisans speaking at Nina's event, she chose to invite 6 Democrats speakers, and she has 2 Republican speakers. So we know where Nina is politically, and we know where she chose to bias this event. And shout out to Gene Evans and Wendy Hausman, the 2 Republicans at this event. But Brad, I think it's fine because as a Democrat, Nina and her party believe that Brad can just put on a little lipstick and maybe some Spanx and a disgusting pantsuit and show up at the event.
And my stripper heels, and I'll be welcomed right.
Ooh, Brad. Hey, Brad, you know what? We can do self-congratulations later. Let's get into the top 3 today, Brad.
Every single day of his life, John Combest puts together this incredible site called johncombest.com, Combest. Dozens of things on there, but what we do is we curate it. I love that word. That's an NPR word. That's an NGO word. We curate it down to the top 3. We bring in this fine gentleman from Norway. We pull him out of his grave, and we point the finger at him, and that's his cue to say,
I'm Casey Kasem.
And then what does he say next?
In third place,
we're going to start real close to home at the Washington Missourian. A great reporter there, a really high-quality reporter named Christopher Parker, sat down or maybe spoke on the phone with, I don't know, either way, Senator Ben Brown. Now, Chris has been going around getting some pre-session thoughts from members of the Franklin County delegation, and I'll just hit a couple highlights of what Ben Brown has to say. When Ben Brown sat down with his fellow Republicans back in the fall, they all made a list of their top 3 topics. And here's what Ben says, quote, addressing property taxes or tax reform, generally speaking, was among the top of the list. Now, I'm not going to go into specific details of what Ben says about the state tax commission and the letters to county assessors, but suffice to say that as you have pointed out presciently on this show, Brad, when you start talking about cutting property taxes, you raise the hackles of education people. Some would call them educrats, the educational establishment, and other people for whom their livelihood is dependent on these property taxes. To cut to the chase, Ben says that one of his efforts is getting assessors together to talk about, hey, how can we actually make reasonable house assessments that aren't completely out of line? And taking a page out of Brad Hildebrand's book, the senator says, I think it's just absurd that you have the remote possibility that a property could be assessed at anything higher than the market value. Now, what Senator Brown doesn't know is he's just talking Brad's language back from our Friday show when Brad was on his rant about BlackRock and how those sort of companies inflate assessment prices. So I think we would all agree that there's a lot of problems with house assessments. Ben Brown is working to get people together to solve it. I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out that Ben acknowledges that Governor Kehoe tomorrow at the State of the State address will probably give a few more details about what eliminating the income tax could be. And Ben gives us a little bit of spoiler, talking about what Oklahoma's plan was versus what, say, Tennessee's plan was. Ben says the governor and his staff expressed that he envisioned a model that would be kind of a balance between the two. That's probably as much as I can say right now. So Ben Brown knows what the tax plan's going to be. And as one more anecdote, if you go to This Week in Missouri Politics show yesterday, Doug Beck, the leader of the Senate Democrats, he was making some suppositions about what Governor Kehoe's going to say tomorrow. Everybody's speculating. Ben Brown actually knows. Ben's staying tight-lipped. So this is another story of how personal property taxes are top of mind of virtually every legislator in the state of Missouri.
John, there's something you don't know about this, is that part of what Kehoe is going to say tomorrow is he's going to bring up Dave Schatz onto the podium.
Oh, Brad, no, why? Why is he going to bring up Dave?
He's going to bring up Dave Schatz, and if you can show you've made at least $10,000 worth of improvements, and you can send him the receipts of the $10,000 worth of improvements you've made on your personal property, not your necessarily real estate, but if you put new tires on your car and new wheels and drop the new engine and things like that, he's going to give you a $5 discount at Buc-ee's in Springfield, Missouri.
You've got $5 coming because you saved the receipts for that brand new pool you put in for those big fat black mermaids.
John.
And tell whatever trio of dried up old bats that they can contact me directly, and then give them a fake email address.
I'll give him your 800 number that's on the Westplex.com Westplex Chamber.
Yeah, that goes to some student loan scam site. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, ready for number 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
Up a notch to number 2.
Oh, it was about 5 or 6 weeks ago that you and I got on the air after a big December 1st snowstorm. And we said, what in the flying heck? What in the baseball commissioner Ford Frick was going on with MoDOT? How did they miss it? Well, you and I were not alone and wondering what the heck happened. And last week, the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission brought in MoDOT's Chief Safety and Operations Officer, a woman named Becky Almeroth. And Becky's point was this: look, we missed it, but so did everybody else. She says the forecast for the St. Louis region before that December 1st was just 1.5 inches. Sounds like she was reading Brad Hildebrand's Tinder profile. Almeroth said the highways were already salted due to an earlier snow event at the end of November. Now, here's what she says, Brad. As of 9 o'clock on December 1st, the National Weather Service, the top authority in weather, said that the precipitation anticipation had not significantly changed. Now, here's the key quote. It was about 9:45, and for about an hour after that, all of our forecasters, all the bells and whistles were going off. This is coming in faster than we thought, and we are seeing some of those snowbursts that could have been in there, and we were getting really, really inundated. So what Becky's saying here, Brad, is that she and her team were relying on National Weather Service. National Weather Service was surprised. So stop blaming MoDOT for it. MoDOT ended up getting their booties in gear as soon as they could. And guess what? Snow happens.
You know, it's interesting because before we went on the air, we play back some best of shows previous to us going on the air live at 7 o'clock. And the show that was playing was the show that originally was done the day after. And you remember, I was quoting Mark Cox, your lady who says, what's her name again? You're the spokesperson, or what's her name for the MoDOT person?
Oh, Becky Almeroth, yeah.
And her quote was, everybody got fooled. Isn't that what she said? Something to that effect?
Yeah, everybody was fooled.
If you remember, Mark Cox, I heard him on the air. He lives out in O'Fallon, Missouri now. He drove on Highway 40, one lane from, which is normally like 3 or 4 or 5, depending where you're at. One lane all the way from his place in O'Fallon, St. Charles County, across the bridge. And when he hit the city limits of St. Louis, all lanes were clear. So apparently, The city, which in past snowstorms has been caught, with their pants down, so to speak. The city,
Ooh, Brad,
so
tawdry.
your MoDOT lady who says everybody got fooled, not the city of St. Louis. They were on top of it. Remember we talked about that?
I do remember that. It's hard to put one past Kara Spencer. And let's not forget that a similar anecdote had been shared by Mark Reardon as well. He said he hit the city limits and everything was fine.
Which is
so,
crazy.
It's just another case of the city being so far ahead. What I always tell people, Brad, we shouldn't worry about what the Westplex does. We don't live in the Westplex. We live in St. Louis City. When we get on a plane and I say I live in the Westplex, people say, is that near Ferguson? I say, I'm not near that. I'm in an area that it would be the 47th biggest. I'm in St. Louis City.
John is primed and ready this morning. No, but John, here's what bothers me. When you have an elected government official who essentially says, well, everybody blew it. Well, guess what?
She's not elected, Brad.
Well,
she's
appointed or whatever.
Let's just be fair.
Why can't she say, hey, everybody else blew it, but we got on top of it? Don't you think that would be, I see, it reminds me of like if I would say things like to my mom, everybody at school did it, and my mom would say, if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge with them? You know what? Take the fact that you blew it and don't put it off. Well, everybody else blew it too. No, the city didn't. And the crazy part of that is our history with the city. If the city does something right, that's something to remark about. You know what I'm saying, John?
It's something noteworthy.
Right.
And when we have our clipping team, producer Christy, who we haven't seen on social in a while, if we have producer Christy go clip a few of our shows, I want her to pull the thing that says, everybody else blew it, but she jumped on top of it.
Okay, whatever.
Because eventually you're like, you got to jump on top. Like, I appreciate this part, but let's get to it. Let's jump on top. And that's what I say about story number one.
The number one.
The date was December 18th. And I was listening to my favorite show on 97.1. That's the Annie Fry Show, which, let's be frank, is one of the only shows on the radio, besides us, present company excluded, that seems to actually have fun on their show. That's one of the things I love about Annie's show. Annie had AG Catherine Hanaway on the show, and I will read you a quote that tickled my fancy that day. Catherine said, in the next couple of weeks, you'll hear about a hire we've made, a very aggressive person that we're going to ask just to focus on the city of St. Louis. I think a few people will be surprised by the hire. Pardon me. Brad, that tickled my fancy so much that the next day on johncombest.com, when I linked to Annie's interview, I called out the fact that Catherine teased a new hire. And Brad, I hate to say I told you so, but I knew who Catherine was going to name. And I knew that it was going to be Eric Reitens. And I knew that Eric was going to be hired to teach law enforcement officers the proper way to use a zip tie when you're subduing a woman. I was so pleased with myself for predicting it. But then I listened on Friday to 97.1. Once again, this time to the Reardon Roundtable. Catherine Hanaway was on again on Mark's show, and they kicked off the roundtable by Catherine making the actual announcement. And I was wrong. It wasn't Eric Reitens tackling crime via zip ties. No, it was going to be Jane Dueker tackling crime. And I will read you quickly a quote from Catherine Hanaway on Mark Reardon's show Friday. We have a number of initiatives that we're trying and clean up downtown St. Louis, going after kratom and 7OH and vagrancy. Jane is going to work on driving all those efforts forward. And she doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to ask her to specifically be the person who's in communication with the Court of Appeals and others who've gotten pretty engaged on those issues. Jane's portfolio is going to be driven a little bit by her too, because Jane's one smart cookie. Congratulations to Jane Dueker. Now, the sad thing is, Brad, she will be leaving the Reardon Roundtable. We won't be hearing her on Mark Reardon's show anymore. But congratulations to Jane, and congratulations to Catherine for making a really strong bipartisan hire here.
Now, should I reiterate my 6 degrees of separation to Jane Dueker?
Absolutely. But Brad, don't do the whole thing where you're doing lines off that chick at the barn at Lucerne.
Years ago, I heard Jane Dueker, they were talking about on the Mark Rudin show, talking about the embarrassing things your parents did. And she talked about that her parents owned a disco back in the 70s. And she talked about the disco. And then she said it was the distillery at the barn at Lucerne in West County. I thought to myself, I worked there. So I looked up Jane Dueker, and I find out her maiden name was Eilerman, and I worked there with two married couples that owned the distillery, and the Eilermans were the one couple that were Jane's parents who owned the distillery disco in the barn at Lucerne out at Kerrs Mill and Clayton Road. I think it's Kerrs Mill and Clayton. And
yeah, it's right there. It's on the, I guess that would be the southwest corner.
Right. I worked there for like a year and a half. And I think it was John Eilerman, and I'm trying to think if it was her mother's name was Patty, or I can't remember her name. They were two of the nicest people. I worked there, and I had a wonderful time spinning records there. And somewhere in my closet, or maybe in my closet that I abandoned somewhere, or some Goodwill store or something like that, is my original denim pantsuit that I had. It was like a onesie kind of thing. It was like, like
was it like a leisure suit?
No, like a coverall kind of thing. But at the time,
yeah,
they
like
were
a onesie. Okay, like kind of a snuggie.
Yeah, they were like big time, and I used to wear that out there and spin records. And I'm telling you, it was a high class operation. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing here? But that's so weird, And I got a hold of her. I never talked to her. I think I tweeted at her or something like that.
Yeah, we were messaging on the X's.
Right. And she confirmed that, yes, that was her parents. Yes, they owned it. Yes, she used to go there. And yes, she was still embarrassed about the fact that her parents owned a disco. But it was a high-class place. I'm telling you, John. It was, I mean, the interesting thing was around today, they wouldn't let me in.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously. And I think that's for Americans with Disabilities Act ramp purposes. But you'll still see, it's kind of like Studio 54. If you drive by Kerrs Mill, you'll still see young people lined up. They saw that movie right after Studio 54 came out. They had one just called The Barn.
Right.
And it was about that guy that wore that onesie, and
now,
it was about his hellacious mother and all these things.
I'm going to ask you a question about this because she made an interesting, Jane Dueker on Friday, I listened as well too, she made an interesting comment. She said she got a lot of feedback instantly when she deregistered as a lobbyist. Okay,
yeah.
What's the deal on that? Are there people sitting there watching that all the time? How in the world do people, she deregistered? How would they know that, John?
Yeah, it's very simple, Brad. If you go to the Missouri Ethics Commission website, they have every day when you deregister or register as a lobbyist, you're required to, within a certain period of time, notify it. And then you can sign up for updates. And there are two outlets. The first that I know that ever did it on a weekday basis was Dave Drebus at Missouri Scout. And today, both Dave does it, and also the Whispering Gallery, which is put together by the Missouri Times' Jake Croson. Every day you find a list of, I think Dave just has it in a lobbying section, and Jake calls it movers and shakers. So every weekday you can get a list of who's representing who and who has deregistered with who.
So could I register as a lobbyist?
I think you have to pass like a really basic literacy test.
So you're telling me
I don't think you would qualify for that. And also that you can do the same thing for both Jake and Dave. Before I get back to making fun of you, both Jake and Dave also list large contributions. So if you receive a contribution, I think the threshold is like $5,000, something over $5,000, then you have to, within 24 hours or 48 hours, I believe, report it to the MEC, and then the MEC, not to be confused with the glorious Mary Elizabeth Coleman, the Missouri Ethics Commission reports it immediately, and then these trade newsletters like Jake and Dave will have it in their weekday newsletter.
I don't even know where to start from all of the things that have been said that are just wrong.
Brad, you're going to get me nostalgic here. MEC isn't going to be in office for that much longer.
Apparently it was a popular decision.
Brad, I can't wait to hear what's in Brad's top three. I hope it's some old bat from the Souchier Institute getting mad at us.
It's coming up.